Ammon Hillman makes all kinds of really, really big claims about specific texts. One of his biggest claim is a text in Galen, a ancient medical writer. And in this, he supposedly talks about pre-pubertal sperm and initiation rites and all of these wild, crazy things if true. Now, Ahmed, of course, doesn't ever give a source for this, never, not once, even though he says, oh, it definitely exists. And even those followers say it definitely exists. But when you ask them, of course, there's no source given. But what would an actual expert say? What would an expert say that has written tons and tons about Galen himself, that has written on all kinds of documented texts, the ones that some haven't even been published yet? What would a Galen scholar say that spent over 50 years studying Galen, the untranslated texts that are not available, or the English translations are not available to the public? What would an ancient scholar that is aware of these special texts that are untranslated, what would he say about Ammon's claims? Let's watch what Ammon's claim is, and then let's watch what the Galen scholar would say.
If you look at chapter 17 and 18, the main bad woman is there offering the cup of her sexual juices. Was arrested in a public.
So here's the key. Everybody listen very carefully to this, because this is a very fact-checkable claim here.
In a pre-dawn raid with a naked boy, and had something on his face that the Greek text refers to in the Septuagint as semen.
The Greek text refers to what Jesus has on his face in the Septuagint and says that it's semen.
So you have to go to the Old Testament to find the word that's being referred to as semen, and then go back to the New Testament
in a textual variant in the Gospel of Luke.
Yeah,
that helps you understand what's going on in the Gospel of Mark. So this is already really hilarious.
Talking about
Jesus had all over his face.
All right, so let's make this clear, okay? How do you find out what an ancient word means? You look at references when the word is used in the same context. What this means is you cannot just simply assume that when a word is used one place that it automatically means the same thing in another place. So, for example, if someone was writing 2,000 years later from today, say 4,000 AD, and they see some people in 1970 saying, hey, that person looks gay. And then they see another person in the 2000s say, hey, that person looks gay. Those two quotes probably don't mean the same thing, even though they're using the same words, because gay 30, 50 years ago meant generally something like happy, compared to today, gay typically means like homosexual. So words change, words could be used different ways. You have to know this individual context. Like say another sentence talks about a person that likes men, man likes another man. Okay, this is probably not referring to happy gay. This is referring to the homosexual gay. The words work the same way. But what Ammon does is he says it himself. He says that if you look at the text of the Gospels where it talks about Jesus, something coming out of his skin, that usually is typically translated as sweat or blood, and you say, hey, this thing in the Septuagint, this word in the Septuagint, it is translated as semen. Well, hey, we can just plug that in to the New Testament and voila. But of course, that's not how languages work, because it doesn't, you have to say that the context of the New Testament is the same exact context of the Old Testament. Ammon doesn't give you any indication, any evidence for that being true.
He's had it all over his face. What he has on his face is sweat. That's what he has on his face in a textual.
That's a classical Ammonism, where you find one text using a word for something in a certain way, like the foot thing. He does the same thing. There are some double entendres where a foot can mean a dong.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Once you figure out the double entendre, it's a singular foot, nominative singular, not plural, not feet.
Yeah.
So then what he does is he goes to the New Testament. Whenever you see the word feet, he thinks he'll say it's dick. And then he's doing the exact same methodology right here. So there might be something in the Septuagint that refers to, it uses the word like what's a word for something coming out of your body, like a emission, right?
Mhm.
Maybe the word emission is also used for semen as well. It could be used for sweat. This is my guess. So then he finds that connection and goes, got it, got my green light. Now I go back to the New Testament. He's sweating here. Oh, the Old Testament, the word for sweating is the same word for emission, which is also the same word for ejaculation. Boom, now I got Jesus have come on his face. That's how he does it.
Yeah.
He
Well,
does the same thing with the purple on the syndone. He
and
goes to the LSJ, he sees the word syndone, he finds another source that uses the word syndone, and in that source, the syndone is purple because it's a purple cloth. And then he goes back to the New Testament and says that cloth had purple on it because another source from 200 years before that had a purple cloth.
Yeah. And anybody can look. Anybody can look this up. It's Luke 22:44. I'm not going to spend time on it, but it says que geneto oidros haftu osi thromviematos katavenondes epitin yin, right? So and his sweat became as if it were great drops of blood falling upon the ground. It's not because it's his sweat was thick like blood. That's all it says. And you just heard the way he twisted that.
As semen.
Yeah.
Jesus had it all over his face.
Semen all over his face.
Had a funny color to it.
And by the way, I thought the whole problem was that he couldn't get the semen on his face. Like, isn't that the whole thing? He needed the semen all over his face so that he could get the antidote. Isn't that the narrative? Like, he's already contradicting his narrative. But let's listen.
A minute. Semen mixed with something. How did that get past anybody? Did anybody notice that Jesus? This is my number one research question, John, right now.
Right now. Yeah.
This is my number one. I am chasing this.
Look how serious
he is to find an answer. Somebody must find out why Jesus was arrested in a public park before sunrise with a naked boy, which the text describes him twice. Mark, it's in the Bible.
The arrest was already in motion before he goes to the garden. Yeah. Right? Judas was already plotting against him in the scene prior. So the idea that he got arrested because of what happened in the park is nonsensical if you think about it. If you read the text word.
Sorry.
Just read the text like
got
fresh
a little
eyes.
Excited there.
You go. Is nonsensical if you think about it. If you read the text word for word and don't try to presuppose anything onto it. Just read the text like fresh eyes. You go, oh, Judas was already going to the Sanhedrin to get him arrested before he even goes to the park.
Mm-hmm. Read the.
Yeah, okay. We can actually look this really easy. I didn't actually know this or recognize this before. So Ammon's view requires that what is happening in the park is the reason why he is getting arrested. That's what he said. He said that one of the reasons why Ammon is getting arrested is because of this, whatever he's doing with this boy. But in the passage, so this young man, okay, this young man, when they seized him, he fled naked, leaving his garment behind. This young man, if we look up here, if we look for Judas, verse 10, it says, then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests to betray Jesus to them. They were delighted to hear this and promised to give him money. So he watched for an opportunity. So this is telling you narratively that the person pours the perfume on her. Then Judas goes and tries to betray Jesus. Then after this, after the whole conversation in the park, then you have the Judas, and then you have the young man, then you have Judas actually coming and arresting them. So if Judas was already going to arrest him before, then they wouldn't be arresting him for what was happening in the park. Like, this is super, super common sense, simple logic here.
The Bible, it says he was there. It says twice he was naked. It says he had a seamed on. And people say, oh, whew,
Here we
there
go,
it
here
is.
we go.
It's some kind of sheet that covered him up, right? No. On the medical side, if you look in Galen, a sindon is a medicated wrap
Doesn't say that.
that you give to a boy
Nope.
who's administering an antidote
Nope.
in a mystery rite.
Nope.
And that boy's antidote comes through his ejaculation.
Oh my God.
Prepubertal.
Ryan, do you believe
And the doctors describe, Galen has a section of his antidote
Wait.
that describes what
talking.
prepubertal
don't
boy
interrupt.
semen is like.
So yeah, he just said Galen has a section in Antidotes that describes what a prepubertal boy's semen is like.
That's never been found in my
What it looks like,
What it looks like,
what its texture
what its
is,
texture is,
what it's useful for,
what it's
what
useful
religion
for,
uses it,
what religion uses it.
religion uses it.
and milk.
That's funny. I've
For
never.
us, the Bible naked.
I just want to
Says he
hear
had
it
a
again.
seam done, and people say, "Oh,
Oh.
whew, there it is. It's some kind of sheet that covered him up, right?" No.
Does this sound like somebody
On
who's
the medical side, if you
not-
look
who's
in Galen, a
confused?
seam done is a medicated wrap
Oh.
that you give to a boy who's administering an antidote in a mystery rite. And that boy's antidote comes through his ejaculation. Prepubertal.
when I asked
Yeah.
Vivian Nutton to review that statement and then fact check it on his understanding as a Galen expert, is this in on Antidotes, or is it anywhere in Galen? And his confirmation was no, it doesn't exist. And in particular, the whole idea of prepubertal sperm can't exist in Galen's system because it can't exist in the Hippocratic system, because according to Hippocrates, once you start emitting semen, puberty has then begun. That is the event that kicks off puberty.
Point of puberty, right?
So as far as Nutton is concerned, first of all, let me just say this. His first response to that was that I think he probably just can't read Greek very well. Like, that was his initial conclusion. I pushed back on that and said, no, I mean, the guy's a PhD. Like, I think he can. I think he's just being dishonest.
100
Yeah,
plus,
but
like,
Also,
what a
been
treaty.
doing this since the 60s, so it's like, I don't think.
Yeah, so this is one of those things. So what people will say is, oh, okay, so there is no other scholar in the planet that believes what Ammon is saying. No other scholar in the planet, no expert on Galen, no expert on any other classic text that believes what Ammon is saying about half the stuff he says. But specifically Galen, you'll never find anybody that says that. This should be relatively obvious because, of course, he doesn't give any type of source. He doesn't give any kind of argument. He just claims it and acts like that settles it. But then he'll say, well, one of the reasons you won't find other scholars saying that is because it's untranslated text. And if this were true, if they're untranslated texts, texts that maybe scholars aren't aware of, then maybe that's why no scholar argues for that. But guess what? It is not as simple as saying, oh, scholars are just completely unaware of the texts out there, that there are texts that scholars just have no idea about. Like, sure, there might be like a few texts here or there that are like someone like a top expert in Galen might not be completely familiar with, but to act like a top scholar in the world would just be completely oblivious to such a huge claim. Like, this is a really, really interesting claim if it is true. Not only that, but it also contradicts with other things in Galen, like Stephen is saying about the idea of Hippocrates, because Galen is a big Hippocrates fan, and Hippocrates says that puberty, like the whole ejaculation stuff, begins at puberty. So that doesn't make any sense to have pre-pubertal sperm. That doesn't even make any sense, ejaculation in that system, even though technically you can from a scientific perspective that we know today. But Galen wouldn't have believed what we believe today. He would have believed what Hippocrates believes. We can know that with High Common Speech, he basically worships Hippocrates. Yeah, like that. But anyway, so, well, what reason is there to think that a top Greek scholar wouldn't know about this text that, once again, nobody can put forward? Ammon never has put forward. No Ammonite follower of Ammon has ever put forward this text of Galen. But like, what are the chances that this text that nobody can bring forward is also unaware, a top Galen expert that's written tons and tons of volumes on Galen would also be unaware of that? Something that would be like a pretty earth-shattering text, super interesting text. And by the way, some of the most popularized texts are the ones that are really interesting. This would be a super interesting text. But this is one reason is because Galen doesn't spend a lot of time talking about ancient rites and cults. It's usually like side comments related to anything at all of that, because he's mainly a medical guy. So what let's check out what they said, because it's like, yeah, I mean, if there is an untranslated text, then I guess that would make sense why only Ammon's talking about it. But what do they say?
Ammon's gonna have the one thing that never heard of, and it just happens to be this like world-shattering thing.
This is the evidence that blows every.
All right, so they're talking about a different topic here. But yeah, that is crazy. That is super, super, super unlikely for Ammon to have this text when he's barely even diving into the literature. Like, he's not participating in the scholarly discussion. It's not like Ammon knows Arabic, which is where a big portion of our new texts are being found. Like, what are the chances that Ammon found this really crazy special text that all scholars would love to talk about, but the top expert and Galen would not be knowing about? Well, let's actually check out what this guy says about Galen and what about Ammon's claims. Hopefully we have the right citation here.
The business with, particularly with opium, all the contexts in which we have people using or,
let's go back.
Yes.
So if you were to encounter somebody claiming that Galen, that there's some section of Galen, like, oh, Galen says this, but they don't provide a citation, and they claim that Galen describes that there is some section of Galen with no source provided, that allegedly Galen describes the ritualistic use of the semen of a prepubescent child that is administered in a rite, and that he describes this in detail, and that it's used as an antidote, similar to what Pliny's suggesting. And I haven't been able to find that in Galen, and I'm wondering if you can confirm whether or not that exists. And
there is a reference in Dioscorides.
Dioscorides is a very different text, of course, than Galen.
To this, whatever the word means, where you use something from what is translated in English as pure boy, but the word may simply mean without any ailment or without serious blemish. But it's a very strange. One cannot. We have various types of magical remedies, which are included within books written, compiled by Galen. But I wouldn't say that I actually ever come across this one in a ritual context.
Okay, I have a very fascinating text on screen that Neil can.
Then they go into a different topic here. So he's very political about this. He just says, hey, I don't know about this text. But what are the chances that a top scholar like that does not know about such an amazing, credible reference? Stephen mentioned something really interesting to me. He says, it's not even really a language question, because Ammon says, oh, I'm just translating. And Ammon says that you got to know Greek really well, and lots of these scholars don't really know Greek. But this is not even really a language question. Like, if the source exists, it exists. There's not really much to debate about that. There's possibly could be some ambiguous language, but if it's ambiguous, then it'll be ambiguous. There's no reason why any scholar would reject such an interpretation. It's not like this is going against any scholarly taboo. There's all kinds of other crazy texts out there that have similar wild comments maybe not on this level of what Ammon is explicitly claiming, but certainly there's lots of other wild claims like in Discordies, and people have questioned that, or in Nonus, or with Epiphanius. Like, scholars are open to the idea. Like, scholars would love to cite this as evidence. But Neil says, I'm sorry, I keep saying Neil. Stephen says, it's not even really a language question. Anyone familiar with the Hippocratic medicine knows that the core of Hillman's theory is inherently self-contradictory. 9 to 12-year-olds don't ejaculate, and magical purple drugs didn't make it possible. Right, so if Ammon's claim were correct, that would directly go against what we know about Galen and what Galen believed. So it just wouldn't make any sense for Galen to say that. We have reason to reject that this quote, even this text even exists to begin with. And by the way, I did clarify with Stephen that he does know that technically today, people that are 9 to 12 can ejaculate, but not according to Hippocrates and Galen. And yet, better yet, Dr. Nutton, in email, because he wanted to be very polite in the interview, but in email, when asked about this text, about all of this happening from Galen, he says this is absolutely baloney. There's nothing in De Antitotis, which is a text by Galen. He says Sindon can mean a linen strip used for bandaging, but as you say, this is what in India is a dote. As for pre-pubertal semen, given Galen and most people regard the emission semen as marking puberty. Pre-pubertal sperm is nonsense. That's what PPS means. Pre-pubertal sperm or semen. Pre-pubertal semen is nonsense. So this is a top expert, like one of the top, if not the top expert on Galen, who almost certainly would be aware of this text, says that not only it contradicts with what we know about Galen, but this idea is nonsensical. And then in the video, he said that this text doesn't exist, or specifically, he doesn't know if it exists. And by the way, for people that are not aware of that scholarly language, of course, scholars are not going to say, oh, it definitely exists, because they don't want to make a big claim in the slight chance that someone else points out something that they maybe like forgot or misread or something like that. Even though that scholar, Dr. Nutton, would be able to like confidently say, hey, yeah, that probably doesn't exist. He's got a reputation on the line. He doesn't want to overstate his case, even the slight chance that a text is not there, which it seems highly unlikely. So that's why you'll see in email, he's a lot more stronger with his language than in person, because he has a reputation. Scholars actually care about reputations. They don't want to overstate their boundaries. They don't want to overstate their claims because their reputation is on the line. So they're going to be extra careful. But you don't see that with Ammon. Ammon is not extra careful. He'll just throw out nonsensical things all the time. He'll be okay with lying, even though you can actually know whether he's lying or not. He's even admitted to lying. So yes, this is a wild claim by Ammon. Strongly rejected by Dr. Vivian Nutton. By the way, Carl Ruck rejects half the stuff that Ammon says. Tons of scholars reject. Lou Gorton, Kip Davis, Daniel McClellan, Bart Ehrman, Joel Koretko, all verbally came out and rejected what Ammon says. And this is probably the most prestigious scholar that has commented on these texts, specifically Galen. And he said that this text he said that he doesn't know this text exists, but he also says this is absolutely baloney. So make sure to check out the rest of that interview. It'll be in the description. Make sure to check out my other videos if you found this valuable. Be careful with what you think about these texts, because you don't want to make any bad assumptions. You don't want to assume things just because someone says so. Ask for evidence. Always be willing to question, and even be willing to critique me. Point out things that I missed, because I want to learn too. Thank you guys. Have a good one.